Edith was sitting in her kitchen sipping her morning coffee and reviewing some design mock-ups on her laptop when the doorbell rang. It was barely 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and she wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she found her sister-in-law and standing there with red puffy eyes and mascara streaks down her cheeks, and walked past her without a word and collapsed onto the couch. That's when Edith knew something serious had happened, and was usually so put together, always perfectly dressed, always in control. But today, she looked like she had crawled through a storm. "It's Stephen," and finally whispered. "I found him with another woman. I'm filing for divorce." Edith's stomach dropped. Stephen? Her little brother? No way. 12 years of marriage. 2 kids. A house in Westburn Grove. And this? And wiped her nose with a tissue Edith handed her. Her hand was shaking. "I was supposed to pick up Maya from ballet class," she said. "I came home early to change, and there they were. On the living room couch. Like animals." Edith's mind raced. She remembered 3 months ago, when she had spotted Stephen outside a rooftop bar with a younger woman. He'd laughed it off when she confronted him. Now it made sense. "Did you confront him?" Edith asked. "Or her?" "I threw a flower vase. Missed his head by inches. He told me I was crazy." That sounded like Stephen. Charm turned to venom the moment he was caught. Edith felt anger swell inside her, not just for but for the kids. "Where are Maya and Leo?" she asked. "Still at school?" "I couldn't. I just needed to breathe." And suddenly stood up, pacing. "You know what hurts?" she asked. He didn't even deny it. He just kept saying I was being dramatic. That maybe I was the reason he had to find love somewhere else. Edith clenched her teeth. Her little brother had grown into something she no longer recognized. "You're staying here tonight," Edith said firmly. "You're not going back there." And nodded weakly, tears still sliding down her cheeks. But Edith had no idea this was just the beginning. Because what neither of them knew was that Stephen had already moved another woman into the house. And that woman? She was about to declare war. The kitchen clock ticked steadily as Edith and Ann sat across from each other in silence. Edith's coffee had gone cold. The sun was now casting shadows on the tile floor, but neither woman moved. There was something Edith hadn't told, and it was clawing at her insides. 3 months ago, that rooftop bar in Midtown Grendelin. She had just wrapped up a meeting with a fashion client when she saw Stephen walking across the outdoor terrace, his arm casually slung around the waist of a tall, red-lipped woman in a scarlet wrap dress. At first, Edith thought she was imagining it. Stephen? Publicly? In daylight? They were laughing, whispering. The woman kissed him. Stephen didn't even glance around to see if anyone was watching. Edith remembered confronting him the next day. "So, who's the girl?" she had asked over brunch. Stephen smirked and said, "You're too old to start playing detective, Edie. Maybe get a boyfriend instead of watching mine." It stung. She dropped it. But now it burned in her throat and interrupted her thoughts. "He's been so distant these past few months, Edith," she said softly. "I thought it was work stress, but he's been planning this, hasn't he? He wanted me to break." Edith forced a breath. Should she say it? That she had known? Seen it? No, not now. And didn't need another heartbreak today. "I think he's lost his mind," Edith said instead. "And you deserve better." And gave a half laugh, the kind that sounded more like a cry. "He said I should be grateful," she muttered, her voice suddenly cold. "He told me he upgraded to someone younger." Edith's fingers curled around the mug handle, so tight her knuckles went white. "He's disgusting," she said. "I'll help you through this. Whatever you need. Just say it." There was a knock at the door again. Both women froze. "Are you expecting anyone?" Ann asked. "No," Edith said. Cautiously, she went to the door and opened it. And there she stood, the woman from the rooftop bar. She wore a silk trench coat, gold earrings, and had one manicured hand resting on her hip. Her hair was sleek, her smile vicious. "Hi," she said sweetly, tilting her head. "Is this Edith?" Edith didn't reply. "I'm Priscilla, Stephen's fiancée. I need to pick up something from Ann's car." Behind her, a sleek black SUV was parked in the driveway. A man in sunglasses sat in the driver's seat. The engine purred. "Stephen's what?" And gasped, stepping behind Edith. "Oh," Priscilla said, feigning surprise. "He didn't tell you? We're getting married next spring. But I suppose that's none of your business now." Edith didn't blink. Her blood was boiling. "You're not getting anything from this property," she said flatly. Priscilla gave a soft laugh. "Oh, sweetheart," she cooed. "You live in Stephen's house now. That means I do too." Then she gave a smug smile and added the words that would ignite the storm. "Get out, you pathetic 40-year-old leech." She turned and walked off toward the SUV, leaving silence behind her like smoke, and collapsed onto the couch again, trembling. But Edith didn't move. Something snapped inside her that day. Priscilla had no idea, because the house wasn't Stephen's. It had never been his. And tomorrow, Edith was going to remind everyone exactly whose name was on that deed. That night, Grindelin Heights buzzed with its usual evening rhythm, cars honking in the distance, the faint hum of life flowing through apartment buildings and penthouses. But inside Edith's townhouse, the silence was heavy, and had finally dozed off on the couch, exhausted from crying and trembling from the confrontation with Priscilla, Stephen's so-called fiancée. Her mascara was still smeared, and her coat was draped over her like a thin blanket. But Edith was wide awake. She sat at her desk in the corner of her bedroom, the glow of her laptop screen painting her face with a cold blue light. She hadn't touched her design mock-ups since that morning. She opened a hidden folder, one she hadn't clicked in over a year. Dad's will property deed, confidential. The scanned copy of the will stared back at her. Her father, Lawrence Mensa, had been a proud man. A real estate mogul who built his empire from scratch after migrating to Grindelin Heights in the 70s. He adored his children. Well, most of them. The last few years before his death were filled with tension, especially between him and Stephen. Edith remembered their final family gathering before he passed. Stephen had stormed out in anger when their father announced that Edith would inherit the family home on Amberlight Avenue. He said it was only fair. She'd been the one who cared for him through his cancer, while Stephen showed up late and left early. "She gave up her job to care for me," their father had said. "That house is hers." But Stephen didn't see it that way. And now Priscilla, this snake in designer heels, was parading around like she owned it. Edith stood up, pulled out the bottom drawer of her desk, and removed a thick brown envelope. Inside were the original property documents, handwritten letters from her father, and the final will, witnessed, notarized, and legal. She had kept them hidden all these years because she thought her brother would never stoop so low. But this wasn't just about Stephen anymore. This was war. In the early morning hours, Edith crept downstairs to check on and, only to find her staring blankly at the ceiling. "Couldn't sleep either?" Edith whispered, and shook her head. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Edith," she said. "I don't have a job. I've been out of work since I had Leo. I gave Stephen everything, and now I don't even know who he is." Edith sat beside her. "You're going to stand up. You're going to fight back," she said. "And I'll help you." Anne's eyes welled up again, but this time not with fear, but resolve. "I'll find a lawyer," Anne whispered. "If he wants war, I'll give him war." Edith nodded, then hesitated. "There's something you should know," she finally said, "about this house," and turned to her, confused. "Stephen never owned it," Edith continued. "It was left to me by our father. I never made it public because I didn't want drama. But now," she paused, "now I think it's time everyone remembers who built this home," and stared at her, stunned. "So Priscilla has no right to walk in here like she owns the place?" "None," Edith said coldly. "And if she steps back on this property, I'm calling the police." For the first time since the chaos began, and let out a small, bitter laugh. "Good. I want to see her try." The two women sat together, shoulder to shoulder, as dawn crept through the curtains. They didn't know it yet, but by the end of the week, Stephen would file a legal claim challenging the ownership of the house. Priscilla would return with something more dangerous than a smug smile, and an anonymous letter would show up in Edith's mailbox, containing a secret that could destroy the entire Mensa family. By Friday morning, the entire neighborhood of Amberlight Avenue was whispering. Stephen Mensa's betrayal and Priscilla's bold appearance at Edith's doorstep had started to spread. Word had reached Mrs. Patel at the florist's, Mr. Domingo the barber, even the nosy school secretary who always acted like she ran Grindelin Heights Elementary. But Edith didn't care about gossip. She had more important things to worry about, like the envelope she found in her mailbox that morning. There was no stamp, no return address, and her name was written in block letters. Not Miss or Ms., just plain Edith. Her heart pounded as she opened it in the kitchen, and watched quietly from the dining table, spooning cereal into Leo's bowl without speaking. Maya was reading a book, completely unaware of the firestorm building around her. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of cream-colored paper, neatly folded. Typed. No signature. He's not who you think he is. If you want proof, go to Storage Facility 13, Unit B7. Ask for the gray box labeled December Archives. Use code 1407. Don't trust him. Edith reread the message 3 times. What is it? And finally asked. I don't know, Edith said slowly. But someone wants me to see something. Who's it from? That's the problem. It doesn't say. She considered throwing it away. Chalk it up to another anonymous hater trying to stir trouble. But deep down she knew. This wasn't random. This was intentional. And it was about Stephen. 2 hours later, Edith stood in front of Storage Facility 13, a concrete box of a building near the industrial end of the city. Rows of rust-colored containers lined the fenced lot. It smelled of oil, dust, and secrets. The clerk behind the front desk barely looked up when Edith approached. Unit B7, she said. I was told there's a box labeled December Archives. The man grunted, typed into the computer, then pushed a key across the counter. It's in the back row. Left side. The inside of the unit was dark and musty. Old office chairs, a filing cabinet, and plastic bins filled the space. Edith found the gray box almost immediately. It was sealed with duct tape and labeled December Archives in faded red marker. She peeled the tape back. Inside were photos, documents, flight tickets, receipts, and a single envelope with Stephen's name on it, written in handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Her father's. She pulled out one of the documents and her breath caught. It was a bank transfer record, dated 6 months before their father died. $85,000 transferred from the Lawrence Mensah Family Trust to an account in Stephen's name. Another paper, a paternity test. Stephen wasn't listed as a biological child. What the hell? Edith whispered. She dropped into the nearest chair, her fingers trembling. There was more. A handwritten letter from their father. If something happens to me, and you're reading this, it means Stephen finally pushed too far. I raised him like my own, but he was never grateful. The lies, the stealing, the threats. I kept it quiet to protect the family name. But I fear one day he will ruin everything. Protect the house. Protect the will. And if he ever brings someone into our family again, be careful, Edith. Especially if she's young and wears red. Her head spun. Stephen wasn't just cheating. He had been manipulating the family for years. He wasn't even blood. And now Priscilla, the woman in red, was wrapped around him like a snake. Edith slammed the box shut and rushed out. The anonymous letter had changed everything. Back at the house, and was pacing the hallway. She turned sharply as Edith walked in. He filed something, and said breathlessly, I just got a call from a lawyer friend. Stephen's challenging the will. He's claiming Dad was mentally unfit. He's trying to take the house. Edith dropped the gray box on the kitchen table like a bomb. Then it's time we stop playing nice, she said. Because I've got something that will bury him. But even she didn't know yet that someone else was watching them. 3 days later, Edith's front doorbell rang again. It was raining this time. A soft drizzle misted the sidewalks of Amberlight Avenue, making everything look dull and smudged, like a watercolor painting left out too long. Edith had just finished scanning the last of the documents from the December Archives box and uploading them to a secure drive. She wasn't expecting anyone, and was upstairs with Maya and Leo, trying to keep their routine normal. The kids were still asking when their father would be back home. Soon, and always said, but her eyes never matched the promise. When Edith opened the door, a man stood on her porch, soaked to the bone. Trench coat, gray fedora, dark umbrella closed at his feet. He looked like he stepped out of a 1950s detective film. Edith Mensah? He asked. She blinked. Yes. You don't know me, he said, pulling a card from his coat pocket and handing it over. But I knew your father. Edith looked at the card. It was simple, just a name. Jonas Breck, private investigator, retired. He asked me to watch your brother, the man said. Before he died, he suspected Stephen was hiding something. Edith narrowed her eyes. What exactly are you saying? I think it's time we talk, Jonas said. She stepped aside. Come in. In the living room, Jonas shook the water off his hat and placed it gently on the armrest. I was hired 5 years ago, he began. Your father was already sick, but his mind was sharp. He told me Stephen had been stealing from him, small amounts at first, but it escalated. Then he started manipulating business deals, falsifying documents. Edith leaned forward. Why didn't you go to the police? Your father refused. Said it would destroy the family name. He asked me to collect evidence quietly, store it somewhere safe. Just in case. Edith's pulse quickened. Was that you who sent the letter? Jonas smiled faintly. I did. I was waiting to see if Stephen would try anything after your father died. He laid low for a while. But now? Now he's made his move. Edith stood up and fetched the gray box from the kitchen table. I found this where you said it would be. Jonas nodded. Then you already know part of it. That he's not biologically our father's son? She said sharply. Yes, Jonas replied. Stephen was adopted. A distant cousin's child. But your father never told the public. He gave Stephen everything. Education, shelter, his name. And Stephen betrayed him anyway, Edith whispered. Worse, Jonas added. He forged your father's signature, twice, on property transfer documents. And one of those documents was for this house. Edith's mouth went dry. That explains Stephen's confidence. If he submits that forged deed to court, Jonas continued, the legal system might freeze the ownership until things are sorted. You mean? I could be locked out of my own home. If you're not careful, yes. And appeared at the top of the stairs. I heard voices. Is everything okay? Come down, Edith said. You need to hear this. As in join them, Jonas leaned forward. Stephen is broke, he said. I traced his financials. He's in debt. Deep debt. This whole marriage with Priscilla? It's not love. She's connected to something bigger. A development company, Crestfall Real Estate. Ever heard of them? Edith frowned. Wait. Weren't they the ones trying to buy out Amberlight Avenue? Exactly. They've been trying to get this neighborhood for years. If Stephen can take this house and sell it to them, he gets a cut. And Priscilla? She's their representative. This was never about marriage. This is a hostile takeover. And gasped. So everything, the cheating, the divorce, the fight for the house, it's all part of a bigger plan? Jonas nodded. Stephen sold out his own family to save himself. Edith's chest burned with rage. Not just for herself, but for her father. For Anne. For Maya and Leo. Then we fight back, Edith said. Good. Jonas replied, reaching into his bag. Because I have one more thing you need to see. He handed her a flash drive. Security footage. From the lawyer's office. Watch it. You'll understand just how far Stephen's willing to go. But when Edith played the video later that night, what she saw on that screen made her stomach turn. Stephen wasn't just working with Crestfall. He had visited a known fraudster, a man who had served time for witness tampering. And worse, he had a forged psychiatric report claiming their father had dementia during the last year of his life. If he got that accepted in court, the will would be declared invalid. And just like that, everything her father left her could vanish. Unless Edith destroyed him first. 3 days passed without a word from Stephen. Edith knew better than to trust the silence. It was the kind of silence that gathered speed in the dark, the kind that came before hurricanes, betrayal, and lawsuits, and had finally moved into the guest bedroom upstairs with Maya and Leo. She tried to keep smiling, but Edith could hear her crying at night through the thin city walls. Meanwhile, Jonas Breck, the retired investigator, became a regular visitor. He brought printed files, USB drives, and scanned documents. He moved like a man who had seen too much in life to believe in coincidences. We need to act before Stephen files that forged psychiatric report, Jonas said one evening. Once it's in the court system, it'll be hard to undo the damage. I'm not worried, Edith replied, because I know where he keeps his real secrets. Jonas raised an eyebrow. Where? Edith gave a sharp smile. His email. Round Pushpin Friday afternoon, Midtown Coffee Roasters. Edith sat alone at a window table, laptop open, latte untouched. She was waiting for someone. Sasha, a former IT analyst she once dated briefly, one of the few men she ever regretted pushing away. Smart, a little socially awkward, but a wizard with passwords and digital backdoors. He walked in wearing the same hoodie he always wore in university, still biting his lower lip when nervous. You sure you want to do this? He asked after she explained. I need access to Stephen's email. And maybe Priscilla's too. That's not exactly legal, you know. Neither is forging a dead man's signature to steal a house. Sasha stared at her. You always did like dangerous men. Only when they make me feel safe. Are you going to help me or not? He sighed, opened his own laptop, and started typing. 30 minutes later, he whistled. You're in. But don't ask me how. I don't want to testify if this goes sideways. Deal. Edith plugged in a flash drive. Stephen's inbox was a goldmine. Emails from Priscilla, all tagged with red hearts. Several labeled CRF Project, Crest Falls abbreviation, and one that caught Edith's attention immediately. Subject: Your sister is smarter than you think. From unknown sender at protonmail.com. Date: 2:17 a.m. For days ago. You shouldn't have pushed Edith. She found the box. She's talking to Jonas Breck. And now she knows about the psychiatric file. If you go to court with this, she will bury you. Pull out. Before you end up like your father. Edith's skin turned cold. Stephen was being warned by someone. Someone who knew what she knew. He has a leak, Edith whispered. Or you have a friend, Sasha suggested. No, Edith said. This is someone else. Someone playing both sides. But just as she was about to log out, another folder caught her eye. Personal, PR. She clicked. Inside were photos. Dozens. Of Priscilla. With different men. In hotel rooms. Private dinners. Secret messages. She's cheating on Stephen, Edith whispered. More than that, Sasha said, looking over her shoulder. That guy? I've seen him before. He zoomed in. He works for Crestfall. Head of acquisitions. She's not just Stephen's wife. She's the bait. Edith leaned back, eyes wide. She marries the target. Makes him trust her. Then helps take him down from the inside. Exactly, Sasha said. She's done this to 2 other men before Stephen. Both lost their family properties. Both disappeared. Disappeared? One fled the country. The other died in a car crash. Unsolved. Suddenly, everything her father had warned her about in that letter made sense. Be careful, Edith. Especially if she's young and wears red. Because in every single photo with these men, every single hotel, dinner, secret meeting, Priscilla was wearing red. Back at the house, Edith showed, and the proof. She's not a wife. She's a trap. And Stephen walked right into it. And clenched her fists. Then let's walk him right back out. We will, Edith promised. But we have to be quiet. Strategic. And nodded. What do we do first? Edith turned to Jonas and Sasha, who were both seated in her living room like 2 halves of a growing resistance. We leak everything to the media, but anonymously. The emails. The photos. The Crestfall files. Everything. Let the public chew him up while we prepare the legal trap. What about Priscilla? Jonas asked. Edith paused. I want to meet her. What? I want to sit across from her. Look her in the eye. And see how far she's willing to lie in red. Later that night, Edith sent a message to Priscilla's business line. Just 2 words. Coffee. Tomorrow. Just us. She didn't expect a reply. But 3 minutes later, it came. Red or black. Edith smirked. We're red. I want to see the devil properly. The cafe was in the heart of Garnet District. One of those places where the croissants were overpriced, and everyone typed louder than they needed to. It was the kind of setting where deals were made and secrets whispered into cups of artisan coffee. Edith arrived first. She chose a booth by the window, ordered an Americano, and placed her phone face down on the table. She wore navy blue, a color that calmed her. It reminded her of her mother. The door chimed 15 minutes later. Priscilla walked in wearing red. A tight, blood-red turtleneck dress, black heels that clicked like threats on the marble floor, and a crimson leather bag slung over her shoulder like a weapon. She walked straight to the table and sat down without removing her sunglasses. I wasn't sure you'd show, Edith said, her voice steady, and missed the chance to hear what your little plan is. Priscilla smiled, removing her sunglasses. You've always been curious, Edith. Nosy even. And you've always been calculated, Edith replied. But I'll give you this, you hide your claws well. A long silence followed, broken only by the hiss of the espresso machine behind them. Then Priscilla leaned in. So what is this? A sisterly defense mission? Or are you just bitter your brother picked me, and not some sad designer from Hollow Heights? Edith didn't flinch. This isn't about me. It's about the lies. The forged documents. The cheating. The way you paraded into our lives wearing lipstick and pretending you belonged. Priscilla's smile sharpened. Let me guess. Jonas told you everything. About Stephen. About Crestfall. About me. He told me enough. But I figured out the rest myself. Like the man you're actually in love with. The one from the Crestfall boardroom. I saw the emails. The hotel dates. The offshore accounts. Priscilla's expression didn't falter, but her eyes flickered. Briefly. You're playing a dangerous game, she said quietly. So are you, Edith snapped. But you picked the wrong family to destroy. Sweetheart, Priscilla said, tapping her manicured nails against the table. Your family has already destroyed itself. I'm just collecting the leftovers. Suddenly, Edith pulled a flash drive from her coat pocket and placed it on the table. This contains everything. Every file, every photo, every deal. I made copies. Dozens. If you and Stephen don't back off, I'll send it to the media, the police, and Crestfall's competitors. You wouldn't dare. I would, Edith said. Because I've got nothing to lose. But you? You've built an empire of lies. And I'm going to enjoy watching it fall. Priscilla leaned back, smiling coldly. You think you're clever, but you're playing in a world you don't understand. This isn't some moral war. It's business. Dirty, painful, unforgiving business. And you're just one woman. One tired, lonely woman clinging to a house and a memory. Edith's jaw clenched. That tired, lonely woman has 2 kids upstairs who still cry for their father. And a best friend who trusted a man that never loved her. She stood up. Tell Stephen to keep his distance. Or the next time we talk, it'll be in court. As she turned to leave, Priscilla called after her. You forgot something. Edith looked over her shoulder. The flash drive, Priscilla said, holding it up. Edith smiled. That one's fake. Back at home, Jonas was waiting on the porch. How'd it go? She wore red, Edith said, brushing past him. And confirmed everything without saying a word. And stepped into the hallway with a stack of envelopes. Her hands were trembling. Edith, this just came. She handed over a thick, white envelope. It was from the city court. Stephen was suing for the property. He claimed their father had been mentally unfit when he signed the house over to Edith. Attached was the psychiatric report. Stamped, dated, and backed by 2 medical experts. He moved faster than we thought, Jonas muttered. He must have sensed I wasn't bluffing, Edith said. He's trying to get ahead of us. What do we do now? And asked. Edith stared at the envelope, then at the ceiling. We go public. Tonight. I have a friend at the Legos Tribune. She's been waiting for a big story. Jonas shook his head. Once this gets out, Stephen won't just lose the house. He'll be desperate. Dangerous. Edith looked him straight in the eye. Then let him come. I'm done hiding. That night, as rain poured again over the city, the front page of the Legos Tribune's online edition lit up with a headline. Millionaire son accused of forging father's will. Family speaks out. And attached to the article was a picture of Priscilla leaving the hotel in red. Edith barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's signature, shaking, broken, falsified, and her brother's name printed beneath it in bold. A son turning against his blood for power. A sister's love turned to war. By morning, the Legos Tribune article had gone viral. Not just in Legos. All over the city and beyond. The paper's website had crashed from the traffic. Her phone buzzed every 2 minutes with texts, calls, emails, support, curiosity, threats, and had to keep Maya and Leo home from school after reporters showed up at the gates. Jonas paced in the living room. Stephen's going to snap. Let him, Edith said, sipping black coffee. He made his move. Now it's my turn. But before she could speak further, a black SUV pulled up outside, and saw it first from the kitchen window, and whispered, "Oh no." The back door of the SUV opened, and Stephen stepped out. Not alone. Priscilla was with him, wearing all black this time, like a widow at a funeral she planned. Edith stepped onto the porch just as they approached. She didn't wait for them to speak. You're trespassing. It's still my house, Edith, Stephen said, voice calm. Too calm. Until the court decides otherwise. Our father gave me this house. He was unstable. The documents were forged. He was sick, yes, but not delusional. Your lies are costing us both, Stephen growled. Your greed is costing you everything, Edith snapped. You think I don't know about the offshore accounts? The shell properties in Priscilla's name? Stephen blinked. Priscilla tensed. Edith smiled. You should have erased your browser history. You went through my email? Stephen barked. What else did you expect from the pathetic 40-year-old leech your wife called me? Priscilla stepped forward then, face tight. Listen to me, Edith. If you don't withdraw your public accusations, we will countersue for defamation. You'll lose everything. Your business. Your savings. Even those kids under your roof. Are you threatening to take Maya and Leo? Edith whispered, rage building in her voice. They're Stephen's kids, Priscilla said with a wicked smile. He has the right to full custody. That was it. Edith took one step forward and slapped her. The sound rang out over the entire street. Stephen shouted. Priscilla gasped and stumbled back. Edith didn't even blink. Come near those kids again, and I will bury you in court, so deep your next marriage will be held underground. Jonas had stepped outside now, behind him, and stood with Maya peeking from the hallway, her eyes wide and tearful. Get off my property, Edith said. This isn't over, Stephen hissed. Oh, Edith said coldly. It's just getting started. As the SUV drove off, Edith felt her hands shaking, and hugged her. You shouldn't have hit her. I know, Edith said, but I've been silent for too long. Jonas handed her his phone. Look at this. Edith scrolled through new emails. One caught her eye. Subject, urgent, Priscilla was married before. From, an anonymous sender. Attachment, 3 court documents plus photo. She opened the attachment and gasped. There she was. Priscilla. But her name then was Lillian Pruitt. Married to a man named Arthur Lomas, an investor who went missing 8 years ago after a scandal involving forged property deeds and bribes. The case had been closed. Labeled a suicide. Edith looked at Jonas. She's not just a gold digger. She's a black widow. That night, Edith sat alone on the balcony. She could hear and reading to the kids. The city lights flickered below like nervous stars. She opened the old envelope from her father again. Inside, beneath the original will, was a torn photo she had missed before. It showed a young woman in red, barely in her 20s. And standing next to her was a man Edith didn't recognize. Behind them, the building read, Crestfall Partners, 2001. Her heart thudded. Priscilla had been working with Crestfall long before she met Stephen. This had never been about love. It was a game, a strategy, a mission, and Edith had finally found the missing piece. She was planted, she whispered, into our family, into Stephen's life, maybe even into Dad's. The truth was deeper than betrayal. It was a conspiracy, and Edith knew. She wasn't the only target. Edith couldn't sleep. The name Crestfall Partners now echoed in her mind like a warning bell. For most people in Lego City, it was just a large real estate development firm, one of many corporations that owned half the skyline. But now, it felt like something darker, more personal, more sinister. She laid the torn photo on the dining table beneath a desk lamp. There was Priscilla. No, Lillian Pruitt, younger, hair shorter, face rounder, standing beside an older man, sharp-faced and dressed in a crisp charcoal suit. The nameplate behind them confirmed it. Crestfall Partners, 2001. But there was something off about the photo. A strange glimmer of fear in Priscilla's eyes. As if she wasn't happy to be there. As if it wasn't her idea. By noon the next day, Edith had pulled every favor she could. She called Imani, her old university friend who now worked at the city archives. Then she called Victor, a retired journalist who once investigated corruption in Crestfall before the media shut him down. She met Imani first, in a quiet corner of the archives beneath the public library downtown. Imani slid a yellowed file across the table. Crestfall was started in the late 90s by 4 men, she said. But one of them, James Lomas, died mysteriously in 2003. Fell from the roof of a half-finished high-rise. Lomas? Edith asked, eyes widening. As in Arthur Lomas, the man Priscilla, Lillian married? His brother, Imani whispered. And guess who took over Lomas's shares after his death? Priscilla. Exactly. Through a trust she created 2 months before the accident. Edith's mouth went dry. It was bigger than Stephen. It was bigger than her family. It was about legacy, real estate empires, quiet deaths, and convenient disappearances. Stephen was never the target, Edith murmured. He was the tool. Later that day, Edith met Victor at a dusty cafe where the waitress still used a notepad. Victor, gray-bearded and half-drunk already, leaned in over the table. You want the real story behind Crestfall? He asked. You won't find it in papers. You'll find it in shadows. He pulled out a worn leather folder and opened it. Inside were photos, reports, receipts, even police statements. Your father worked with them once, Victor said. In 2001, he signed a land deal. That photo you found, it was taken on the day he backed out. Said something didn't feel right. 2 weeks later, his car was torched. Police said it was accidental wiring failure. But he survived, Edith said softly. Yes, Victor replied. And he disappeared from business circles completely. Moved here. Bought that house. Never touched real estate again. Her chest tightened. Her father had been running from Crestfall, and from her. He never told her any of it. He just quietly passed the house to her before he died, perhaps knowing someone might come for it, and that someone had finally arrived, smiling in red lipstick. Back at home, Jonas was in the kitchen when Edith burst in. "They've done this before," she said. "Priscilla's real name is Lillian Pruitt. Her first husband vanished after a business deal went wrong. His brother fell off a roof. My father's car exploded. This company, Crestfall, it eats families, Jonas." Jonas looked pale. "So what do we do now?" "We do what they fear most. Expose them." "No," Edith whispered. "We expose her." That night, and came downstairs with a small box she hadn't opened in years. "These were Stephen's old things," she said. "I thought you might want to go through them." Edith dug inside. Old documents, business cards, photos. Then she found it. An envelope. No name. No return address. Inside, 2 photographs. One of Stephen shaking hands with a bald man in a gray suit, and one of that same man standing in front of Crestfall Tower, arms around Priscilla. "Who is he?" Jonas asked. Edith turned the photo over. There was a faint name written in pen. "Raymond Galt, CF Strategic." Jonas froze. Raymond Galt is the new CEO of Crestfall. And guess what? He used to work for the Lomas family. Before they vanished. "She's not just in love with him," Edith said. "She's working for him." "No," Edith whispered, the pieces finally falling together. "She's helping him finish what they started 20 years ago." That night, Edith looked out over the city. All the towers lit up like teeth. And in the distance, looming over it all like a silent judge, Crestfall Tower. "This isn't about saving the house anymore," she said aloud. "This is about saving what's left of the truth." "Then what's our next move?" Jonas asked. She turned to him, eyes cold and tired. "We go to the media, but not with documents. Not with rumors. We give them a witness." "Who?" "Priscilla's ex Arthur Lomas." "But he's dead." Edith opened her laptop and showed Jonas an old photo from Victor's file. What if he's not? The next morning, Edith was on the road before sunrise, and begged her not to go alone, but she couldn't risk drawing more attention. Besides, Jonas stayed behind with the kids and a copy of the files, just in case she didn't come back. The address Victor had circled in his notes was 2 hours outside Legos, in a forgotten town called Watershed Hill. Population, barely 300. Surrounded by dry farmland and rusty fences. A place where people didn't ask questions, and strangers were noticed immediately. As Edith drove, her mind replayed the evidence. Arthur Lomas, Priscilla's first husband, had supposedly jumped from a bridge after Crestfall's corruption scandal ruined his name. But no body was ever recovered. Just a pair of shoes left at the edge and a suicide note typed, not handwritten. Victor believed he was alive. The photo of him at a gas station 5 years later said the same. The address led to a small, rundown auto repair shop with a faded sign. Galt's Grease Oil. It was the name that made her freeze. Galt. Same surname as Raymond Galt, the current CEO of Crestfall. Priscilla's alleged partner. But this Galt was no executive. The man who stepped out from behind the garage wore oily jeans, a flannel shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low. His beard was unkempt. His hands were covered in black grease. Edith stepped forward. "Are you Arthur Lomas?" The man didn't blink, didn't speak. He just wiped his hands on a rag, walked back inside, and shut the door. She stood frozen, then knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. Finally, she slid the photo of Priscilla, Lillian, under the door, along with a note. "I know who you are, and I know what she did. Please, we need to talk before it's too late." She waited in her car for hours. At one point, she considered giving up. But as the sun began to set and she started the engine, the garage door creaked open. The man stood there again, now with a cigarette in his mouth. He nodded toward the side of the building. She followed him into a cramped office that smelled of oil and loneliness. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. "You're Arthur Lomas." He nodded once, stiffly. "She thinks you're dead," Edith said. "Let her think that. She's marrying my brother." Arthur stiffened. "She's doing it again," Edith whispered. "Using a man to destroy a family. And you want me to help you stop her?" "No," Edith said. "I want you to help yourself. She didn't just ruin your name, Arthur. She took your legacy and gave it to Crestfall. And now she's doing it to mine." Arthur looked down at the desk, at an old cracked photo of him and a young Lillian. A time when her eyes were kind. Or maybe just better at pretending. They offered me money, he said. Back then, said if I disappeared, they'd fix everything. Pay off my debts. Rewrite the story. Who's they? Galt. Raymond Galt. His father ran Crestfall before him. Lillian was their inside girl. Married me for access. Then when I found out, when I tried to leave, she went to them. Told them I'd flip. Edith was stunned. She faked your suicide? Galt wrote the note. She left the shoes. I just drove away. You can testify. You can expose them. No, he said, shaking his head. You don't understand. These people, they don't fight in court. They make people disappear. Just like they tried with your father. Edith leaned closer. But what if I already exposed them? What if the whole city is watching now? Then she'll come after you next. Let her, Edith said, voice low. I'm not afraid anymore. Arthur stared at her. Then, quietly, he opened a drawer and pulled out an old leather folder. Take this, he said. It's everything I have. Contracts. Letters. Photos. Enough to bury her and Galt both. Come with me, Edith urged. I'll call you if I survive the week. By the time Edith returned to Legos, it was past midnight. Jonas was waiting at the gate. You're okay, he breathed, pulling her into a tight hug. Thank God. We have what we need, Edith said, holding up the folder. Inside were signed agreements linking Crestfall's corruption to Lillian. Copies of offshore accounts. Even a birth certificate that proved Priscilla Galt wasn't born in this country at all. She had a different name. A different past. A past she had buried. But now Edith had dug it up. What now? Jonas asked. We hit them where it hurts, she whispered. We take this to the media. And if they won't listen. She looked toward the glowing skyline. Toward Crestfall Tower. We'll bring the tower down ourselves. By morning, Edith had barely slept. The leather folder from Arthur Lomas sat on her desk like a live grenade. Jonas paced the room nervously while and sat on the couch, holding her phone tightly, her eyes darting to the children playing quietly in the next room. We can't keep this secret for long, and said. We don't need to, Edith replied. We just need to go public before they find out we have it. She opened the folder again, flipping through decades of corruption, fake contracts, forged property ownership documents, blackmail evidence, and even medical reports from victims of Crestfall's forced evictions. We take this to the Pulse, Jonas said. They're the only media house crazy enough to run it. Everyone else is on Crestfall's payroll. I already called them, Edith said. They're sending an editor this afternoon. But they were already too late. At 1:07 p.m., a black car pulled up in front of Edith's house. She opened the door, expecting the journalist from the Pulse. Instead, a delivery man handed her a thick brown envelope. Inside was a single typed message. We know what you found. Walk away, or bury your brother. At the bottom, a photo of Stephen standing in front of a building Edith didn't recognize. Eyes hollow, shirt torn, and what looked like blood on his collar. Edith's hands began to shake. The journalist arrived minutes later. Eva Mensa, a sharp-eyed woman with short natural hair and a press badge clipped to her lapel. You okay? She asked, noticing Edith's pale face. No, Edith said honestly. But let's keep going. She laid everything out. The folder. The photos. Arthur Lomas's signed statement. Copies of Crestfall's shell company ownerships tied directly to Priscilla, Lillian Pruitt Galt. Eva listened, recorded everything, took photos, and made notes with speed. If even a third of this is true, Eva said, this will be the biggest scandal in the city's history. That's why I need it published fast. Before they come for more than just threats. Eva nodded. We'll verify it all and run it on Friday's front page. But by 8 p.m., the Pulse's website was offline. Their headquarters had experienced a mysterious power outage. And Eva? She wasn't answering her phone. Then came the worst call of the night, from Anne. Edith, Leo's gone. What? He was playing in the garden. I turned for just a moment, and now, he's not here. His bike is still here. But he's gone. Edith dropped her phone. The walls of her home seemed to close in. She had expected threats. Maybe even an attack. But she hadn't expected them to take her nephew. Jonas ran into the room seconds later. What's going on? They've taken Leo. He didn't speak. He just grabbed the car keys. Edith followed. They searched the neighborhood for hours. Police arrived. Flyers were printed. Neighbors questioned. But no one saw anything. No one heard anything. Until a plain white envelope was slipped under the door. Inside, another photo. Leo, asleep, strapped into a car seat. A woman's hand on his shoulder. The nails painted red. Priscilla. This ends now, the note read. One more article. One more interview. And your entire family disappears. Back at home, and was inconsolable. Maya clung to her. Jonas stared at the walls in silence. And Edith? She sat alone in her studio, watching the photo of Leo flicker on her laptop screen. She zoomed in. Enhanced the background. The edge of a license plate. A warehouse door. A shadow that didn't match Priscilla's silhouette. She saw it. A ring. A man's hand. Not Raymond Galt's, but Stephen's. Edith gasped. She grabbed her phone and called Victor. You said they used people. Broke them. Turned them. Yes. Do you think they turned Stephen? There was silence. I think he never had a choice. They're using him to scare us. No, Victor said. They're using him to protect her. Edith ended the call and looked at the photo again. Her brother's eyes in the background. Puffy. Dead inside. Still loyal to a woman who ruined everything. Still under her. She leaned back in her chair and whispered to herself. Then I have to break him first. Edith didn't sleep that night. Her mind replayed the same image. Leo, strapped in, sleeping in the back of that unknown car. Her brother's hand. Priscilla's red nails. The threat written in plain black letters. But fear was a luxury now. She had one goal, get Leo back. And to do that, she would have to play dirtier than they ever expected. By 6 a.m., she had assembled her crew. Jonas, loyal and sharp, watching from the balcony. And, reluctantly staying behind to protect Maya. Victor, watching digital traffic and surveillance hacks. And now, a wild card. Marcellus, a rogue former Crestfall employee who had been sending her anonymous messages since Chapter 5. He arrived wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, and a gun in his waistband. This is insane, he muttered, flipping through Arthur Lomas' file. These people don't scare easy. Neither do I, Edith replied. They called the plan Operation Dustfire. Because once this started, it would burn until everything collapsed, or someone died. Step 1. Trace the car. Using metadata embedded in the image, Victor pinpointed the warehouse Leo had been taken to. It was in the industrial outskirts of Legos, on Dockline Street, near old shipping containers and storage silos no longer in use. Step 2. Bait the trap. Edith uploaded a public video. No news station would take the risk, but she could use social media. It was a simple 90-second clip. My name is Edith Kella. I have in my possession undeniable evidence of crimes committed by Crestfall Industries, and by their top executives, including Priscilla Galt, formerly known as Lillian Pruitt. I know what happened to my father. I know what happened to Arthur Lomas. And if anything happens to my family again, this goes directly to the United Nations Anti-Corruption Task Force. The video ended with a freeze frame of Priscilla smiling at a gala event. The internet exploded. She made sure to tag every major city journalist, even the ones in Galt's pocket. Because now, the story was alive. Step 3. Break the chain. The plan was to force a reaction, push Priscilla into making a move. And it worked. By nightfall, Victor tracked activity at the Dockline warehouse. 4 armed guards. 1 SUV. 1 white sedan. And Stephen, walking in and out like a puppet on strings. Victor's voice came through the Bluetooth earpiece. You sure about this? I don't have a choice. If this goes wrong, then post everything. All of it. Even the names Arthur tried to hide. Especially the names. Edith approached the warehouse under cover of fog. Jonas waited in a getaway car a block away. Marcellus was hidden behind a stacked pile of rusted shipping containers, armed with a tranquilizer gun. Victor watched from drone surveillance. 1 guard walking. 2 inside, Victor said. The white sedan is parked. I think Leo's in there. Edith crept toward the building. Her phone buzzed. It was a text. From an unknown number. Turn around, Edith. This is your last warning. She ignored it. She was almost to the loading bay when she heard it. A child's voice. And Edith. Leo. She broke cover. Leo. I'm here, baby, I'm here. A floodlight clicked on. 3 guards turned. Guns raised. But then, a single shot from Marcellus's tranquilizer gun took out the lead man. Jonas slammed the SUV forward, ramming the other car. Leo screamed and ran toward Edith as Stephen appeared in the doorway. Edith, stop. Don't move. Stephen, you're letting them use you again. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. She's not saving you. She's destroying everything. Behind him, Priscilla stepped into the light. wearing a white coat, smiling. "I warned you," she said calmly. "I warned you, Edith." "Let him go," Edith snapped. "Let Leo go." "He'll go," she said. "But not with you." Then she looked at Stephen. "Do it." Stephen froze, then raised a gun, pointed it at Priscilla. "I'm sorry," he said, and fired. The bullet grazed her arm, just enough to knock her backward. Leo ran to Edith. Jonas threw open the back door. "Go!" Edith scooped Leo into her arms, dodging another shot from the guards. Victor's voice screamed over the earpiece. "Get out now? More of them are coming." 2 SUVs inbound. They jumped into the car and sped off into the darkness. Back at home, Maya wept when she saw her brother, and collapsed to the floor in relief. Edith shut the door and slid to the ground. Jonas sat beside her, silent. Then Victor's voice came through again. "You've started a war now. Then let it burn," Edith said. She walked into her studio and looked at the laptop. One final file left unopened. One labeled, Project Anvil. Arthur's last warning. She clicked it open, and gasped. Edith's hands trembled as she opened the folder named Project Anvil. The screen flashed once, then filled with documents, encrypted pages, audio logs, photographs, video clips, and classified reports bearing multiple government seals. But one file caught her attention immediately. Confidential, Subject 42, Legos City Zone 7. It was a medical case study, signed and timestamped by her father. The document described a community research project carried out under the guise of urban renewal. A dozen residents from a slum in Zone 7 were selected for voluntary relocation. But they weren't relocated. They were monitored. They were exposed. And eventually, they died. Her father had blown the whistle, documenting everything. The strange symptoms. The government's refusal to respond. The quiet disappearances of residents who tried to speak up. One report showed abnormal chemical readings in the local water tanks, matched exactly to Crest Falls waste processing formulas. This was a test, Edith whispered. They tested on them. Victor's voice came over the speaker. It was more than that. Scroll down. She did. Her father had filed a request to halt the program. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Project Anvil was a covert experiment, Crest Falls' way of turning slums into high-rises without waiting for gentrification. Displace, contaminate, erase, then develop. Clean hands, quick profits. And it wasn't just Legos. It had happened in 4 other cities. Across 2 continents. All linked by shell companies run by Priscilla Galt. Jonas stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. "Your dad was trying to stop this. He died trying. So now you finish what he started." "We all do," Edith said. They spent the next 72 hours compiling everything. Backups, digital signatures, official testimonies, and the footage from Dockline Warehouse, the confrontation, the gunshot, the escape. Victor made encrypted copies on multiple servers. Jonas contacted safe media outlets through proxies and took the children into hiding under new names far outside the city. And Stephen? He was missing again. Then came the call. A blocked number. Edith hesitated, then answered. "You've gone too far," said a woman's voice. Calm. Cold. "Priscilla, this isn't about land anymore. Or money. Or even reputation. It's about truth," Edith replied. "It's about survival," Priscilla snapped. "You think taking down one company changes anything? We built the city you're standing in. You think you're saving it? I'm saving my family. You're putting them in the crosshairs." Edith said nothing. "You release that file," Priscilla continued, "and 10 more families disappear. Just like Zone 7. Then maybe it's time the world sees Zone 7. Click. Edith ended the call. She looked at Victor, who was already uploading the files to an offshore press server. "Make it go live. Tonight." "You sure?" "Yes." "Then once this is out," he said, "you won't be able to hide. Not from them. Not from the government. Not from the people they own. I'm not hiding anymore." At 11:59 p.m., the website launched. www.operationanvilleaks.org. Within seconds, the server was flooded. Hundreds of downloads. Thousands of shares. A headline exploded across underground networks and independent press. "City of Death. Crest Falls experiment on the poor exposed." Within an hour, it was trending. By dawn, police cars lined the streets in front of Galt Tower. But inside Edith's apartment, there was no joy. No celebration. Because Edith knew something was coming. Something bigger. At 6:17 a.m., Her phone buzzed again. A new text. From Steven. They've activated Omega Room. She's running. What's Omega Room? She typed back. No answer. Then came another ping. An image. A passport. A private jet ticket. A photo of Priscilla boarding a black SUV. And beside her, someone Edith never expected. The mayor. Edith's stomach dropped. They weren't just going underground. They were preparing something massive. She turned to Victor. Get Jonas. Pack light. We're going after her. You're leaving? No, Edith said. We're hunting. And in that moment, for the first time, she didn't feel like the hunted anymore. She was the flame. And Priscilla would burn. The morning light in Lego City had changed. For months, the skyline had seemed like a cage, steel and glass walls trapping Edith in a life she never chose. But today it felt different. Edith stood at the rooftop of Jonas's safe house, her laptop balanced on a cracked ledge. The Operation Anvil leaks had gone viral. Screens across downtown displayed headlines of horror, slum testing, displacement, mass poisoning. But what chilled Edith most wasn't what the world now knew. It was what was still hidden. And the woman hiding it? She was no longer in the country. Priscilla Galt had vanished. Victor traced her private jet from Lego City to Capera Island, a private territory off the Mediterranean coast, known for three things: offshore banks, diplomatic immunity, and dangerous people hiding behind luxurious anonymity. She hadn't gone into hiding. She'd gone home. Do you know who owns that island? Victor asked, pacing with his tablet. Some shell company, right? Edith replied, tying her hair into a tight bun. Victor flipped the screen toward her. On it, a crest with a golden tower flanked by two serpents. Crestfall International. Of course, she muttered. She built her sanctuary on a throne of bones. Jonas crossed the room. We have two options. Let the leaks do their job, or go to that island, drag her out, and force her to confess. We won't survive that place, Victor said. We're not going there to survive, Edith replied. We're going there to finish this. That night, they booked flights to Marseille, the closest safe zone to Capera. From there, they'd take a private boat across the dark waters, arriving under diplomatic radar. Edith brought a single bag. No press passes. No laptops. Just a voice recorder, a burner phone, and the only photograph she still kept of her father. The next 48 hours were chaos. In Lego City, the mayor was forced to step down. Protesters filled the streets. Two of Crestfall's board members were arrested trying to flee with gold bars sewn into their suitcases. But still, Priscilla's name never appeared in the official reports. Why? Because she had activated something bigger. The Omega Room. Victor decrypted the term hours before they boarded the boat. It wasn't just a hiding place, it was a protocol, an operation within the shadows of governments. One designed for executives like Priscilla who had enough dirt on world leaders to protect herself at any cost. The boat they took was silent on the water. Edith stared at the lights of Capera Island ahead. The shoreline sparkled like paradise, but she knew what waited behind those glass towers and palm trees. Lies, betrayal, and death. Jonas sat beside her, loading a fresh magazine into a pistol. You ready for this? She called me a leech, Edith said softly. Told me I was pathetic. She looked out across the ocean. She's about to find out who I really am. They arrived just before dawn. Capera looked like a billionaire's fantasy. Gold-trimmed villas, marble walkways, and drones buzzing lazily in the sky. Edith, Jonas, and Victor entered through the abandoned marina, the only part of the island not under constant surveillance. But within minutes, they realized the place wasn't deserted. Someone was waiting. A tall man in a white suit stepped into view. Gloves. Reflective glasses. No visible weapon. Miss Kella, he said with a smile. Ms. Galt has been expecting you. Victor reached for his gun. Don't, the man said casually. You'll trigger the sand mines. Edith held out her hand. Let's talk then. He led them through winding paths to a sleek, towering estate perched on the edge of a cliff. There, in the rooftop glass garden, sat Priscilla, sipping champagne in a silk robe. Her bandaged arm rested in a sling. The wound from Stephen's bullet was healing, but her ego? That was still bleeding. Edith, she said calmly. You look thinner. You look nervous. You came all this way, Priscilla said, pouring a second glass. To what? Arrest me. To expose you. Priscilla laughed. You already did that. I'm still here. I'm untouchable. You think the people in your little city matter to the men who built the world? They mattered to my father. Your father begged us for silence before he died. Edith stepped closer. My father never begged. No. Priscilla smirked. Then why was his voice the last one screaming when they set the fire? Edith froze. What fire? Priscilla tilted her head. Oh, you didn't know. She turned to the man in white. Show her. He handed Edith a tablet. On it, a video. Black and white. Dated 10 years earlier. A building going up in flames. In the corner, a man, gagged, hands tied, screaming. Her father. Edith dropped the tablet. She fell to her knees. Jonas stepped forward, rage burning in his eyes. But Priscilla was smiling. Now you know the truth. He didn't die for a cause. He died because he got in the way. She walked over, crouched beside Edith. This story doesn't end with justice, dear. It ends with silence. She leaned closer. Just like your father. Then everything went black. A sharp prick at Edith's neck. Jonas shouted. Victor screamed. Then, nothing. Edith's eyes fluttered open, but everything around her was pitch black. She reached out blindly, feeling cold metal walls and damp concrete. Her fingers brushed across what felt like chains hanging from a rusted hook. Her head throbbed. There was a bandage on her neck. She had been drugged. A soft, irregular beeping echoed somewhere in the darkness. It wasn't a machine. It sounded like breathing. Someone else was in the room. Then, a whisper. Edith. She froze. That voice. Who's there? She rasped. It's me. A flicker of movement. A tiny flame burst to life as someone lit a match, casting a weak orange glow across the dungeon. Stephen. Edith gasped. There he was. Disheveled, gaunt, but alive. Her brother was shackled to the wall. How are you? I thought you. They caught me the night I sent you that text, he whispered, wincing. I tried to warn you. About Omega Room. About Priscilla's plan. What the hell is this place? They call it the root cellar. Anyone who knows too much ends up here. Why haven't they killed you? Stephen gave a dark laugh. Because I still matter to her. She wants me to turn. Turn. She's building a new board, Edith. She knows her name is burned in the public. So she's creating a new shell company, a new face. And she wants us to front it. Me, you, even Victor. People with sympathy, with stories. Survivors. That's sick. She calls it the rebirth of trust. Edith pounded the metal wall. Victor, Jonas, are they here? Stephen shook his head slowly. No, they were separated from you. Victor's too valuable to kill. He has digital access to some of the servers. Jonas, they might have sent him to the mines. Mines? Stephen lowered his eyes. Let's focus on getting out of here. They scanned the room. It was primitive. Brick, steel, humidity leaking from the stone. But the technology was sophisticated. Biometric locks, cameras in the corners, no visible way out. She built this whole island to be untouchable, Edith muttered. No, Stephen corrected. She didn't build it. He looked at her. Our father did. Edith reeled back. What? This bunker, these escape routes, this entire island system. It was part of a wartime protocol drafted when Dad worked in city engineering. Long before Crestfall, he designed the island's storm shelters and evacuation tunnels. You're telling me, he built her escape plan? He never knew she'd use it for this. Stephen reached under his tattered shirt and pulled out a tiny capsule, no bigger than a rice grain. He left a failsafe, embedded in the blueprints. A master key. And you've had it the whole time? I couldn't use it until I found the control node. But now you're here, I think we can find it. Together. At that moment, a vent in the corner burst open, rattling violently. A soft thump. Then a familiar voice echoed through the shaft. Edith. Stephen. Are you alive? Victor. Victor. Edith called out. How are you? Jonas and I escaped during the transfer. We bribed a guard. Got maps of the lower levels. I'm above you. I can get a rope down in 3 minutes. But you need to move fast. The island's going into lockdown. Why? Because she's not just running from exposure anymore. Priscilla's planning a reboot. What does that mean? It means she's about to erase every record, every survivor, every trace of Crestfall's crimes. Edith turned to Stephen. We're not just escaping anymore. No, he nodded. We're going to finish this. Victor dropped the rope through the vent. Edith climbed first, pulling Stephen behind her. As they emerged into the maintenance shaft, Jonas appeared from the shadows, covered in grime, but alive. They didn't speak. There wasn't time. They ran. through the underground tunnel system, past blast doors and forgotten bunkers, until they reached a locked steel vault etched with a strange mark, their father's initials. Edith pulled the capsule from Stephen's hand and pressed it into the small square slot. A beep, a hiss. Then, the vault opened. Inside, a single terminal. Glowing. Waiting. Victor gasped. This is it. The root of the entire Crestfall archive. Decades of buried data. Names. Codes. Bank accounts. Witness logs. Uploaded, Edith said. All of it. It'll take time. We'll buy you that time. Footsteps echoed behind them. Red lights flared. Priscilla's voice rang out over the loudspeakers. You've made your choice, Edith. Now you'll die with the truth. But Edith smiled. She turned to Stephen, Jonas, and Victor. Let's give her something to remember. The vault's fluorescent light flickered as the old terminal whirred to life, humming like a sleeping beast awakened after decades of silence. Victor typed fast, fingers a blur across the antique keyboard. This thing is older than I am, he muttered. Can you access the data? Edith asked, pacing at the door with Jonas's stolen pistol in her hand. I can, but there's encryption on top of encryption. I'll need at least 15 minutes to decode and upload to the mirrored global servers. You have 10, Jonas snapped, peering into the tunnel. We've got movement. Edith leaned over Victor's shoulder. The screen displayed a series of files rapidly unlocking. Operation Slumline. Water poisoning pilot. District K. Omega Room, draft constitution. Names of city officials. Bribed, blackmailed, eliminated. Oh my God, Edith whispered. Each file was worse than the last. This wasn't just a corporate scandal. It was a blueprint for systemic control. Priscilla and Crestfall hadn't just corrupted Lego's city. They were trying to build a template to control other cities around the world. This was a playbook for tyranny. And if they failed to upload it now, it would disappear forever. Suddenly, static crackled through the loudspeakers. Then Priscilla's calm, venomous voice filled the vault. Edith, you were never meant to be anything more than background noise. A forgotten footnote in your father's file. Now you're pretending to be the story. You're right, Edith whispered. What? I am the story now. Footsteps thundered in the distance. Jonas readied himself by the vault entrance. He had one semi-automatic rifle and 2 spare magazines. Edith joined him, gripping a pistol with trembling fingers. Stephen crouched in a corner, searching the floor for anything they could use, metal pipes, wiring, even nails. They're almost here, Jonas growled. Victor, Edith called out. 8 more minutes. The sound of boots pounding stone echoed louder now. Then, a burst of gunfire. The door to the corridor exploded inward as Crestfall's private security unit stormed in. Black armor, red visors, and the signature 3-pronged logo etched into their bulletproof vests. Edith fired first. Jonas followed. Bullets ricocheted off the vault frame. Back, 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 Stephen yelled, pulling Edith behind a desk. Jonas took out one attacker with a headshot. Another dropped when Victor, of all people, threw a wrench with shocking accuracy. But they kept coming. A stun grenade rolled into the vault. Boom. Everything went white. When Edith came to, she was behind a flipped filing cabinet. Blood trickled from her ear. Jonas was groaning beside her. Stephen had a gash across his forehead, but he was crawling toward the terminal. Victor was still typing. 3 minutes left, he shouted. But now, the vault door was breached. Priscilla walked in slowly, flanked by 2 guards. I warned you, Edith. She raised her pistol. You kill me now, Edith said, struggling to stand. And your empire burns anyway. Priscilla smiled. I'm not going to kill you. She aimed at Victor. He's the only one who can finish this upload. Before Edith could scream. Bang. Victor slumped over. Blood on the keyboard. No. But something happened. A soft ding. The upload bar flickered. Completed, 100%. Priscilla's smile faltered. No. Stephen stood behind her, holding a stolen stun baton. Surprise. He jabbed her in the back of the neck. ZZAP. She collapsed. Her guards turned. Bang. Bang. Jonas finished them both. The room went silent. Edith crawled to Victor, holding his hand. He coughed once, blood on his lips, but managed a weak smile. Tell the world. I will. Tell them, we mattered. And then he was gone. Alarms wailed. Screens lit up across the world. From Times Square to downtown Abai to the rooftop of a student hostel in Lagos, The world watched the data stream. The truth was out, and for the first time in decades, Crestfall was falling. But as Jonas and Stephen helped Edith to her feet, sirens began to roar across the island. From underground bunkers, new units began to deploy. "They're not going down quietly," Jonas muttered. "They never do," Edith said. She looked down at Priscilla's unconscious form. "We still have work to do." Because while the world now knew the truth, the war for justice was just beginning. The smell of gunpowder still hung thick in the air as the sound of distant helicopters grew louder over Capera Island. Edith stood over Victor's body, her hand resting gently on his forehead. He had given his life to expose the truth. Jonas had patched up Stephen's bleeding head, and they now crouched in the corner of the vault, exhausted but alert. Suddenly, a robotic female voice echoed from the facility's intercom system. "Attention, unidentified aircrafts approaching restricted airspace. Automated defense disabled. Proceeding to passive lockdown." Edith's heart skipped a beat. "That's not Priscilla's system," she whispered. "Someone else is coming." Outside, a sleek, silent black helicopter touched down in the open square above the underground vaults. It bore no markings, no country flag, no corporate logo. Just 4 white stripes painted along the tail. Like tally marks. Jonas peeked through a cracked vent, narrowing his eyes. "That's not military. That's worse." "Who are they?" Stephen asked. "Freelancers. International contractors. The type you call when you don't want the government to know what you're doing." The back of the helicopter opened, revealing a group of 6 suited figures with tight black gloves, shades, and biometric scanners on their necks. They moved like ghosts. The leader was a tall woman in her late 50s with snow-white hair and dark skin. Her eyes scanned the bunker entrance. She spoke into her earpiece. "Alpha to Echo. Confirmed target is unconscious. Acquire biological sample. Leave the rest." Edith whispered. "They're here for Priscilla." Seconds later, they stormed into the vault. The white-haired woman walked straight past Edith, Jonas, and Stephen, without even acknowledging them. She kneeled beside Priscilla's unconscious body, took a saliva swab, and stood up. Then she turned to Edith, and finally spoke. "You've stirred the nest, Ms. Adebayo, but you didn't burn it. Who are you?" "We're the ones who clean up after truth is exposed." Edith raised her gun. "You're not taking her. She's going to answer to the people." The woman smiled gently, like a mother watching a child pretend to be brave. "You think this ends with an arrest? A courtroom? A trial? It should. The world doesn't work on should, Edith. It works on leverage. And right now, Crestfall still owns half of the world's infrastructure. You crash that all at once, billions die from fallout." Jonas stepped forward. "What are you saying?" "We let the system adjust slowly. Quiet resignations. Private seizures. Deaths that look like accidents. This isn't justice. It's balance." Edith's voice cracked. "Then what was the point of all this?" "The point," the woman said, turning toward the terminal, "was to force the world to pay attention. And you did. Now we take over." She tapped her earpiece. "Echo, extract package A. Torch the rest." Suddenly, gas began to hiss from the vents. Stephen's eyes widened. "They're going to destroy the whole place. We have to leave. Now," Jonas shouted. They grabbed Victor's laptop, their backup drives, and one of Priscilla's data cubes before running through the emergency shaft. Behind them, the vault ignited in a chain of silent fire. Everything, evidence, tech, documents, was vaporized. Outside, a second aircraft hovered. Edith and the team burst from the hatch just as the vault collapsed inward. The white-haired woman stood calmly, boarding her craft with Priscilla still unconscious in tow. "We'll be in touch," she said over the loudspeaker. Then they were gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. Hours later, Edith, Jonas, and Stephen sat on a fishing boat with a quiet old man who hadn't asked a single question. They sailed silently back toward the coast of the city. The skyline of Legos appeared, bathed in the dull orange of morning light. Stephen leaned over. "You think they'll really disappear her?" "No," Edith said. "You think they'll try to rebuild Crestfall again?" "No." "Then what?" Edith stared at the burning horizon. "They'll rename it, reshape it, and when the next city falls, they'll be there. With new flags, new smiles. Then we didn't win." "No," Edith said softly. "We just made it to the next level." As they approached the docks, a group of reporters was already gathering, shouting questions, flashing cameras. Edith stood up and looked at Jonas and Stephen. We tell them everything, whether they want to hear it or not. Jonas nodded. Even if they try to bury it again. Especially then. They stepped onto the docks, exhausted and broken, yet somehow whole again. A new war had begun, and Edith Adebayo was ready. The press conference was supposed to last 20 minutes. It lasted 3 hours. Edith stood at the podium in front of Lego's City Hall, her voice firm, her words deliberate. Cameras flashed from every direction. News vans, international journalists, activists, and even former Crestfall employees watched in silence as she spoke. We have released to the public a cache of documents that show, without question, how Crestfall Corporation, in alliance with corrupt city officials, poisoned our water, manipulated elections, and enslaved vulnerable communities through economic blackmail. Her voice trembled only once, when she mentioned Victor. One of our own gave his life to expose this. His name was Victor Enns. Don't let them forget him. As the press conference ended, chants began to rise. Justice for District K. Down with the silent syndicate. Edith, Edith, Edith. But in the shadows of the celebration, someone was watching. A tall man in a gray coat stood at the edge of the crowd. His face remained hidden under a cap and glasses. He wasn't there for the news. He was there for confirmation. He spoke into his earpiece. Target alive. Upload verified. Begin next protocol. Then he vanished into the crowd. Back inside City Hall, Mayor Temitope Ojora met with Edith in private. She looked shaken, older than her 50 years, her hands trembling slightly as she poured tea. I want to thank you, she said. You saved this city from a dark hole. With respect, Edith said, this city isn't saved yet. She slid a file across the table. Inside were names, some Edith recognized from news articles, but others were shockingly close to the mayor's inner circle. Temitope paled. Where did you get this? Jonas intercepted a mirrored folder before the vault exploded. You're saying these people still work for Crestfall? I'm saying some of them never stopped. Outside, protesters cheered, sang, and waved banners. But inside, political games had begun to spin once again. Jonas pulled Edith aside. You're becoming a symbol, whether you like it or not. Symbols are easy to target, she replied. Then let's not be symbols. Let's be hunters. Later that night, Edith returned to her apartment. She hadn't been home in over 4 days. She opened the door slowly, checked the corners, and finally slumped onto the couch. She felt the weight of it all. The victory, the cost, the lies still to unravel. Then, a noise from the kitchen. She stood quickly. Who's there? A figure stepped out of the shadows. Anne, Stephen's ex-wife. Hair now short, face hard, dressed in black. You didn't think you'd seen the last of me, did you? Edith stared. Anne, what are you doing here? And smiled bitterly. You and Stephen burned the empire down. And in the flames, you forgot something. What? And stepped closer. You forgot that I was part of it. Edith didn't move. She stood frozen in her living room, staring at, and her ex-sister-in-law, Stephen's former wife, the woman who had once collapsed on her couch in tears after discovering Stephen's affair. But tonight, and looked nothing like the broken woman from that day. Her voice was cold. Her eyes, calculating. And, what do you mean you were part of it? Edith asked, still unsure whether to reach for the hidden knife in the lamp drawer behind her, and stepped fully into the light. Her black jacket bore a subtle emblem near the collar, for white stripes. Edith's stomach dropped. You're with them. The ones who took Priscilla. And raised an eyebrow. Was with them. Past tense. Until they tried to burn me, too. She walked to the window and looked out over the glowing skyline of Legos. They didn't want divorce. They wanted silence. When I refused their payout, they erased me. Who are they? Not Crestfall. Something older. Deeper. Crestfall was just a front. And turned around and tossed a small USB drive onto the table. This is their archive of fail-safes. Blackmail videos. Covert fund trails. Unregistered shell core. And something else. What? A list of the next cities they plan to destabilize. Edith's mind raced. She picked up the USB. Why give this to me? Anne's eyes flickered. For a moment, there was a crack in her steel mask. Because I'm done hiding. Because my children deserve better than a mother buried under secrets. And because you're the only one crazy enough to do what needs to be done. And what's that? Burn the root, not the branches. Suddenly, a red laser dot appeared on Anne's chest. Down! Edith screamed. Glass shattered as a suppressed gunshot cracked through the window. and dropped behind the couch, bleeding from her shoulder. They found me faster than I thought, she groaned. Edith grabbed her and dragged her toward the hallway just as a second shot missed them by inches. She kicked open the back door and pulled in down the fire escape. Jonas's car screeched around the corner. "Get in," he yelled, opening the passenger door. Edith shoved and inside and jumped in after her. "She has something," Edith panted. "Something big." Jonas sped off, dodging a pair of black motorbikes that had emerged from the shadows behind them. I thought and was out. So did I. Back at Jonas's hideout, and lay on a table as Edith stitched her wound. She winced but didn't cry. "They don't kill for revenge," and whispered. "They kill for efficiency. Then we make them inefficient," Jonas said. "We go public with what's on that drive." "No," and said firmly. "You do that, they shut down every port, block every signal, stage a blackout." "Then what do we do?" Edith asked, and looked at both of them with a strange, grim smile. "You don't leak it. You auction it." Jonas blinked. "Auction? To who?" "To every shadow buyer on the dark grid. The anarchists. The billionaires. The governments who hate them. Flood the black market with truth and watch them scramble." Silence. Then Edith stood. "Then let's sell the truth to the devils and make sure it reaches the people anyway." Back in the heart of Legos, a notification pinged on a hidden server. A new user had logged into a secure node, uploaded a 700 terabyte data payload, and initiated a countdown clock. 7 days. That's all the syndicate had left. 7 days. That's what the digital clock blinking across the dark web node read. 6:23:57:02. 6 days, 23 hours, 57 minutes, 2 seconds. The world didn't know it yet, but the largest intelligence leak in modern history was about to be auctioned off, and every buyer, from rogue states to tech lords to resistance cells, was sharpening their claws to get a piece. Edith stood in Jonas's underground server room, cold, humming with electricity, and lay on a couch nearby, her wound cleaned, eyes closed but alert. "They'll try to stop this," Jonas said, typing furiously. "They already are," Edith replied. "We've been pinged by at least 6 ghost firewalls. Someone's trying to trace the server." "They'll fail," and said from the couch. "We built those servers in Abai during the telecom blackouts. Nothing traces unless you're already inside." Jonas paused, looked at her. "Inside? What? You said unless they're inside." And sat up. "Yes. What? Because someone is." He spun the monitor around. A blinking icon appeared in the system, a mirror stream, copying every megabyte they uploaded to another private server in Buxar, a corporate district infamous for intelligence laundering. Edith's eyes narrowed. "That's not one of ours." "No. But the code has. Crestfall signatures," Jonas muttered, his face pale. "Someone's leaking our leak." And stood, wobbling. Only one person could have coded that. Who? Anne's face hardened. "Stephen." Edith's mind reeled. Her own brother? After everything? She stormed out of the server room and called him on the encrypted line. It rang twice before he picked up. "Edith, where are you?" "Just got back to the city." "What?" "Don't play dumb. There's a mirror stream on our auction server, with your name all over it." Silence. "Stephen, answer me." "It wasn't personal," he finally said. "They found me. Told me to delay the auction. That if I didn't, they'd release something on Maya and Leo." "What? What could they possibly have on your kids?" "Not on them," Stephen whispered. "On their birth, their DNA." Edith froze. "What do you mean? You remember when Anne and I tried IVF and said it failed?" "Yes." "It didn't. We were forced into a gene trial agreement by Crestfall. Leo and Maya were born into it. They own part of their genome. If this auction goes through, they can legally extract our kids like property." Edith couldn't breathe. Her niece and nephew, products of the very corporation they were trying to destroy? Stephen continued. "I didn't betray you. I protected them. By leaking the archive to the enemy? By buying time." Edith hung up and returned to the bunker, and could tell from one look. "He cracked, didn't he? They're using the kids." Jonas sighed, wiping his face. "There's always a backdoor. That's how they built Crestfall. Every win has a cost." Edith stared at the clock. 6:12:00:44. "Then we find a way to win without sacrificing Leo and Maya. Or we don't win at all." That night, as rain hammered the windows of the hideout, a shadow figure stepped off a private jet at Lego's airstrip. She wore a gray suit, had short platinum hair, and a long scar under her left eye. It was the white-haired woman from the vault, Priscilla's captor, and she wasn't smiling anymore. "They've gone feral," she told her handler through the earpiece. "Edith and Jonas, they're playing gods now." "Do you want them dead?" the voice asked. "No," she said, eyes glowing cold. "I want to turn them into examples." Back in the city, the billboard above Central Square flickered unexpectedly. Every screen lit up with a grainy image. Edith, Jonas, and a message blinked beneath. "They have what you need, but you'll never get it in time." The Judas Protocol initiated. People across Legos gasped. The game was no longer in the dark. It had gone global.